Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Live at 5 with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research. I am your host, curator Kevin Adkisson, and I am back today in the Frank Lloyd Wright designed Smith House because for the last week, my staff and I have been working with a current student, Melissa Webb, in the Cranbrook Academy of Art Fiber Department to execute a very special installation here at the Smith House. So if you have been on some of our Live at 5 tours before, you know that the Smiths were school teachers in Detroit public schools who had a dream of building a Frank Lloyd Wright designed house. They moved into this house after much struggle and belt tightening in 1950. Mr. Smith passed away in 1984, and it came to Cranbrook in 2017. So one of the great benefits of being at Cranbrook is I have a built-in sort of cabal of artists over at Cranbrook Academy of Art. And Mr. and Mrs. Smith were huge supporters of the Art Academy. There are multiple pieces here in the house where in Cranbrook archives I can go through Mr. Smith's student art catalogs where he would circle which pieces he bought or wanted to buy at the auction. There's also sculpture in the yard that came directly from the Academy of Art graduate degree show and then was placed here. And so I think it's pretty wonderful that this winter, this January, we have the first student who is working here in the Smith House. And I'll turn the camera around and show you the piece in just a moment. The student is Melissa Webb, and she emailed me in late November, December, asking, Kevin, what is an interesting space on campus that's full of stories that I can respond to architecturally? And I gave her a sort of long list. We had a meeting about it. And then as soon as we walked in the Smith House, I could just see in her eyes that this was causing sort of inspiration to her as she was standing here in the Smith House. Of course, why did we collect the Smith House as an object, but to be an inspiration? And so I think it is wonderful that we today are sharing with you progress on Melissa's installation. So I'm standing here by the front door, and as soon as you come in the front door, you cannot miss her piece. So Melissa Webb is a Baltimore native. She studied at the Maryland College of Art, or Art Institute. Forgive me for not knowing the exact name. She studied in Baltimore. She taught in Baltimore, and she was a practicing artist there in Maryland. And she came to Detroit to study at Cranbrook. She's now in her second year. And so this is her piece for her second year midterm reviews, which are happening shortly. Now, I'm not actually showing you the whole piece because Melissa's practice as an artist bridges textiles, installation, photography, and videos. And so, understanding this piece through Instagram Live is already sort of taking it one step away from the artist intent. But furthermore, there's actually a change in the piece from day to night. And in the evening, Melissa actually projects a series of videos onto the piece. So keep following the Cranbrook Center, because eventually I will be able to post some of those videos with the music. And I'll talk about what the videos are in the music in a moment. But for today, we're just looking at the static sort of environment she has created. And so all of these things that we're looking at, it is a mixture of handmade and manipulated textiles, where she's playing with different types of textiles, doilies particularly, crocheted pieces. And she's getting these from different families, from estate sales. So sometimes she knows who the doily belongs to and whose hand might have made it. Other times she doesn't. And it goes back to an issue that even Loya Saarinen was concerned with in the 1930s, which is, what is the value of the textile? Where does that value lay? And so it is this question of sort of women's work as a genre in domestic art and in production. And Melissa's really interested in how do these pieces maintain value? If you can buy them at an estate sale for 50 cents, I mean, that's just a huge reduction in value between the sort of time and labor and even the investment in the materials, but also hugely important is the investment in the stories. And so what are the lives of the women who made these pieces, the lives of the pieces themselves? And so I'm going to have Melissa on camera next Wednesday for a Facebook Live. So do come back for that so we can hear from the artist. Today you're getting my interpretation of it. But I love this piece because it's not only sort of this kind of crazy naturalistic mold growth, but it also is imbued with these layers of sort of the artist work, the homemaker's work, all of the different hands that came together. Now, Melissa did some of these herself, and then her process also involves many different textile techniques. So as I try and show you different corners of it without stepping on anything, it really is this different combinations of materials and processes. So that includes immersion dyeing, recrocheting, and then surface embellishment. So taking apart certain doilies or certain pieces and then reinterpreting them into this naturalistic scene. And she's really thinking about the ideas of sort of collecting and coveting and combining pieces. And if she's watching, you can comment if I'm getting any of this wrong. And then, of course, if she does watch this and she disagrees with everything, I'll do my first Live at 5 apology video. But I think that I'm hitting her sort of points. On a larger level, Melissa's really interested in the sort of dualities of what does it mean to be utopian or dystopian? What does it mean to be natural versus what is domestic space? And what's the combination? Is there a way for us as humans in 2021 to have a sort of symbiotic relationship between nature and domestic space? And so to my eye, I certainly see this, and I think of artists like Urban Japina and his cave rug that you may have seen at the Cranbrook Art Museum a few years ago, a piece he did for the Smithsonian in the 70s. And of course, Urban Japina did this much more conventional tapestry here. And so we have a fiber graduate from 1970 and then a fiber graduate from 2021. And I really love the way that Melissa's piece works with the sort of language of the Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, where you have over here Mr. Smith's permanent botanicals, his fake plants, which are coming off the edge in a way that Frank Lloyd Wright always designed his building. So if Frank Lloyd Wright had done a presentation drawing of this living room, which he did not do, but in similar architectural drawings, Frank Lloyd Wright would have these ledges and there would always be vines coming over them. And when I was in discussion with the owners of the Turkel House down in Detroit, and they have vines growing over a ledge, and they said, yeah, but the great myth of it all is he draws the house with all these vines, but he didn't actually put any planters up there. And so we had to go to great lengths to try and rig planters so that you could still see through the railing, but also have the vines coming over. And so I really appreciate Melissa's piece for sort of relating back to Frank Lloyd Wright's own ideas of nature and living in this organic architecture. Now, as we go back and look at the piece, you can see the way that it really is this rich combination of doilies and embroidery and different fiber techniques that have again been immersion dyed and then re-sewn together into this new landscape. Now, there is another aspect to these piece, which are some of these rocks. This is a rock from one of Cranbrook's gates, the old north gates on Cranbrook Road, which you'll know are due for restoration, which will take place later this year. This rock will return at that point to go back in the gate, but it was pulled from the ground by another architecture student who then made cast of different Cranbrook rocks. And so you have this translucent cast, you have a plaster colored cast, you have a hot pink cast. And so there are sort of these stones of Cranbrook that are peeking out of the landscape. I also love the interaction of the Metropolitan Museum of Art Rodin souvenir plaster cast of Rodin in the hand, surrounded by all of the hand work. And you see some more of the rocks popping out. And then I also really love the interaction between the pillows, which were woven by Andrea Ahrens, who took night weaving classes with Robert Kidd at Cranbrook in the early 70s. And so these pillows are from about 1973. And I love the way that Melissa's piece interacts with Andrea Ahrens's piece and the way that her blooms really sort of come out of the pillows. The pillows always sort of look like Muppets to me, but I think they're even further enhanced by this installation. This sort of wonderland growing out of the corner. Now, Mrs. Sarah Smith, the lady of the house, she loved doing dried floral ikebana, and she would also do plastic ikebana, if you will. And so this is an example of a piece from about 1955 to 1960 that Mrs. Smith likely made in one of her vessels. And she had these all over the house, including in this vessel. Now, only one of hers survives, but when I told Melissa that story, she immediately said, "Oh, I have the perfect piece that I'll put in." And so you see how you have the sort of nature growing out of the blue sofa, and then you have the nature in the sort of Ikebana revival in one of the Smith's collection pieces. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Do look forward to, I'll be posting either to Instagram and then also next Wednesday when I do the Live at 5 on Facebook, Melissa is going to be here and I will be able to post some of the night shots when the work is covered in the video. Now, what exactly is the video? It is a series of films that Melissa made of the environment, projected onto the environment. She also used footage of the trees and the nature around the Smith house to then project into the house. It is quite radically different when the whole thing is illuminated by projected images of itself. She also has a soundtrack that's sort of bubbling brooks and trees. And then she also used Beethoven because Frank Lloyd Wright's favorite musician was Beethoven. And Sarah Smith would play Beethoven every morning on the piano. And so on Sunday, I came over and very generously, Nathan Costa, the organist at Christ Church Cranbrook and husband of Amy Claire Roche, head of Cranbrook Schools, he came over and he played some Beethoven for us, and Melissa recorded that and is going to incorporate it into the video of the entire piece. So this was a very different Live at 5. It's been a very different project to work on. I really enjoyed it. I think it's kind of amazing to be in here with this piece, and I look forward to sharing with you more details. And then, of course, once we have it finalized and Melissa has finished her documentation, we will post that final video onto the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research website. So until tomorrow, I will see you all next Thursday. I'll see you tomorrow for Live at 5 from the Cranbrook Academy of Art Architecture Studios. And then I will see you next Tuesday for another Instagram Live at 5. And next Wednesday, I'll be back right here with Melissa to talk more about this piece. Now, before I head off to the ill-scheduled 5 o'clock lecture at the architecture department tonight, I want to invite you to my architecture lecture series, which begins next Monday. It runs for 5 weeks, and it is History of American Architecture, Cranbrook Visitors. And so each week, if you have come to my lectures before, you know that 3 years ago we started quite broad and we did a history of architecture. The year after that, we did it by building types. Last year, we did a history of Cranbrook architecture. This year is going to be a little bit different, and we're going to focus on 15 architects looking at 5 vignettes, moments in time, and what these architects, these three groupings of architects are. 5 groupings of 3 architects might tell us about American architecture more generally. So week 1 starts on January 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Eastern. It's the same lecture. You have 2 chances to make it. And we will be talking about Frank Lloyd Wright and Le Corbusier and both of theirs 1935 lectures at Cranbrook, as well as Alvar Aalto in his 1938 lecture at Cranbrook. So sign up for the whole series on center.cranbrook.edu. It's going to be great. It's going to be lots of fun, and it is our major winter activity here at the center, and so your ticket price goes to support all of the free programming and the maintenance of the house, and lets us do things like work with Melissa every night until 11 p.m. So thank you, Matt Horn and Elena Ivanova, if you're watching, for being the supervising team here. 2 of my collections interpreters who do tours of the Smith House sat here with Melissa while she painstakingly knitted this entire thing together. I hope you enjoyed this look into Melissa Webb's as yet untitled, or at least I don't know the title, piece here at the Smith House. This response of nature and fiber, women's work and recycling, all of these sort of things that topics that are so relevant to our world today that this piece inspires us to think more critically about. Good luck to all of the Cranbrook Academy of Art students who are in the middle of their midterm reviews this week. I hope that you all have great success and great feedback. And to the second years, I hope you're getting great feedback on your projects as you zoom towards the finale and the April opening of the graduate degree show. Thanks so much for following along, everyone. Until I see you again, hopefully on Monday for the start of the History of Architecture lectures. If not, I will see you on next Tuesday for another Instagram Live at 5. Be safe, everyone. Be well. I hope everyone is safe and healthy out there and warm. It's very cozy here in Smith House with our new radiator.